Hey,
Hi there. Here we are. It's Wednesday, and we are ready for our Wednesday live stream.
it's that time again.
It's that time again, and we will be right back.
Hey,
As we always say, we're in this together.
yeah, I
And
love that little musical piece. And Elliot will be in town here pretty soon. Maybe he'll come on the show with us and do a little interview.
yeah, that would be fantastic. So I think so. We are Laura and Dave Butler, and we do these weekly live streams. We do customized programs for individuals, teams, organizations, focusing on enhancing work life integration, leadership, change management, career support.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. And we enjoy doing these each week as a result of what we put together is a Tuesday tips, usually 5 things that we feel and what we hear from our client list and people who want to hear more information are resonating with them. So today's topic is dealing with the need to be perfect. And we heard from a couple of people in our circle that, boy, you picked a good one this time. So this is something that we deal with. And this was one that was really on the top of the list for you. Why would you say that?
Well, yeah, I've been, going through some transitions of my own with my Parkinson's and not being quite as available as I used to be. Trying to make some changes to all that. And there's a certain amount of it that I have to accept the fact that I can't do things as perfectly as I would like. Not that I was ever really perfect, but I felt like I was, pretty close. And now I have to back that off a little bit and find simpler ways to do things. Let's call it that. And the general area I would call image management, which is also a new area in Berkman that they have a new report out called Mindset. And so I'm learning a lot all at once about image management and not being perfect and looking up some of the stuff that we've done in the past about perfectionism and how destructive it can be to organizations and teams because everybody tries their best, but being perfect is not the issue anymore. Being as close as possible and good enough is good enough.
Well, I'd love to hear from those of you who are on the call right now. What does it look like for you? What are some situations where perfectionism gets in the way or holds you back? And one of the things we shared this week is that perfectionism is a habit. It doesn't have to be something that we do all the time. Somehow we tell ourselves that I've got to be perfect. And it gets in the way of maybe some other things that are kind of messy emerging.
And certainly creativity, which is important today, is always messy. In order to fool around, you have to do some finger painting before you start painting your masterpiece.
Well, it gets, in the way of helping other people. They may feel because we as leaders may show that we expect things to be perfect.
Yeah.
It blocks creativity, but it also blocks the ability for people to come forward and say, hey, my bad. I did something that wasn't so great.
And
And
unfortunately, we don't learn from the mistakes.
That's right.
The failures become real failures because they're not learning events anymore. They're catastrophic because nobody knows what's going on.
And if you're listening to us in the recording after the live, please leave a comment as well on how does perfectionism, get in the way. There could be some times where being a perfectionist is a benefit, but I think it's all about the habit.
Well, certainly, if they're working on, you got open heart surgery going on. You'd like to think that people are striving to be perfect, but even there, they have to adapt to things that were maybe unseen or unplanned for.
So we have this list of 5 keys and 5 topics or areas that can help with maybe changing that habit, as we just said, from being perfect to less than perfect. And one of them is to set a time limit around an activity.
And I know from our own experience, sometimes you just get so stuck on one thing, you keep hounding it and wearing on it and banging on it. Hours go by. Sometimes it's better to just set a time limit. Say, I'm going to do as much as I can, and then I'm going to move on.
Well, what it reminds me of is, it's kind of that what we refer to a lot as ankle biting. Where you latch on to something and you just don't want to let it go. It's part of this self-awareness. So it all ties together with emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
If I know myself well enough to be able to say, okay, that's enough, Laura, step back, rather than beat it, without getting any resolution.
Keep wearing away on it.
Yeah. And no, I think this one's really key. Recognize the beauty and benefits in quote unquote good enough. I remember in college, and I was one of these supposed high achievers. I just an A wasn't good enough. I needed a double A. What is that? But there is something to be said about the educational system that it supports 99.9%. And if you can't get 100. And I had a professor who said to me, how about you just look at something as good enough? And I thought, wow, that was such a significant shift. And we all have our own levels of what good enough is.
Well, certainly if you're doing it for someone else, a customer or a team member, you want to ask them, what is that good enough?
Right. Right. So and one thing we mentioned is the dissonant harmonies in music that create that tension, and when we look around us and we see that there are a variety of ways and things that appear a certain way, we think one thing, but it could be something completely different. And it gets in the way of, what that really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the good enough, the beauty and the benefits. It's certainly there if you look for them.
And then the third one is reflect on your own unique failures. And I think this is a key because being able, as I said before, with self-awareness, to be able to know that I have the ability to say to somebody, wasn't my best, or this is something that I noticed is not going well. And we don't need to have all the answers. We just need to open up the space to have the dialogue.
Well, I've got a good example on this one, if you like. The other night, I was heating up some soup for Laura, some soup that she really liked, and I completely forgot about it and left it on the stove. I got caught up in doing other things that I was trying to be perfect on. And before I knew it, I came back and it was completely burned and turned into cement in the pan. And, so I can reflect on that unique failure, but the failure wasn't so much in the fact that I burned the food. It was in the fact that I didn't set a timer. So Laura bought me a watch.
And figure out how to use it. But, going back to the beauty and good enough, for those of you who may know the artistry of a fabulous singer-songwriter, Joni Mitchell, 50 years this year for her iconic album, Blue. And there was an article about her and how this all came about in the New York Times this past weekend. And what she calls her work, her musical creations, are chords of inquiry.
Nice.
And and I thought about that in terms of coaching work, in terms of what we do with teams. If we create the sounds, the melodies, sort of a metaphor that creates those chords of inquiry, that ability to ask the right questions, then we can discover unique failures. Which ties into psychological safety. We've talked about that on this netcast before. But it's just because we talk about it one time, it doesn't mean it's done.
Hmm.
And then number 4, learn from past failures. And I think that this really addresses the need to rehearse.
Yeah. Let's try. Let's see what happens. Try. Let's see what happens. In the theater, rehearsal is so important because what you're doing is actually trying to identify the ways that things don't work. Because what you'll be left with is what works.
That's right. And you
So,
try it and try again and see what shapes up.
mhm.
So again, we are Laura and Dave Butler. For those who are joining us now or listening on the recording, we have our weekly topics during our Wednesday live streams. And we will put information on how to reach us in the bottom of the screen if you have additional questions or would like to submit requests moving forward. So the learning from past failures, we've talked a lot about this, but I think it's so key in terms of the ability to step back from perfectionism and admit when something isn't going as well, because then it gives us, it's always, there's an expression I love, is we always have the opportunity to restart our day, no matter what time it is.
Yeah.
So we don't have to stay.
Hit the do-over button.
Yeah, exactly. And the 5th one is ask for feedback on your attitude. And, how do others perceive you? How do you show up? Are you showing up as you coming across as being difficult to work with?
Judgmental.
I think that's, can't hear you.
I said being judgmental.
Yeah. So always being a learner, not a judger, is certainly one of the key aspects of the learning organization going forward. But I think that's why, 360s can be so beneficial. With our Berkman tool, we have a 360 feedback tool, which is what I like about it is it ties right in with the Berkman results. So we don't have to go to anywhere else to look for the coaching that's needed to help people
Right.
get out of this perfectionism.
Yeah, and there's a certain amount of asking for feedback that helps to build relationships. I mean, if you're always so concerned about everything being perfect, it's sometimes hard to interrupt you and hard to talk to you because you're so fixated on getting things perfect. But if you communicate a little bit and I give you a little bit of feedback and we talk together about it, you might actually learn something and be able to find some answers that you're looking for.
Right, exactly. And if anybody would like to meet with us for a 30-minute discovery call, a complimentary, there is the information on the screen.
Especially if you like to share about failure. I'm always happy to hear about failures.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the key aspect. So our time is up for today. Anything else you would add as a closing thought?
No, I think the only thing I would add is to say, try and enjoy the day, enjoy your life, and enjoy your work.
Yeah. If you don't have passion, what does, nothing matters.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for listening. Join us again next week. As I said, if you have things that you would like us to dive deeper into, please let us know. See you next time.
Always happy to dive.